Today we're going to pick up a little bit where we left off last week. Last week we were talking about being stuck in a rut, being stuck in patterns. And I compared it to the movie Groundhog Day. Today we want to look at the process of new beginnings, new beginnings. Now our society is we're pretty dramatic as a culture, you know. We try to make everything into a big deal, into a lot of drama. And as far as our spiritual growth is concerned, I think at some point we have to look at that. I think our society is addicted to drama. That's the number one addiction that we have. So if something isn't a struggle, turn it into a struggle because we expect everything to be drama. And we've got to get over that. We've got to get over that. God doesn't struggle. God doesn't have any struggles, you know. And you can see that even in our human experience, we have projected human struggles onto the divine. We have given God enemies. We have given God people that he has to, strike down and all these kinds of things. But if we step back far enough and think about it, that which is all, that which is one with everything, it has no enemies. It can have no enemies. If it had an enemy, it would have had to create it out of itself, which is kind of an insane sort of thing to think of. So we think of perfect love, we think of perfect harmony, we think of perfect power. What is it that can stand against perfect power? Nothing. What is it that could plot against all-knowingness? Nothing. So we've got to get out of this idea of life has to be drama. Life has to be drama. It doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't mean that things don't happen, but it means that everything that happens doesn't have to have a big climax like in the movies and in literature. You know, the story comes to this crescendo, to this peak, and then afterwards everything kind of falls in place and we all go home happily ever after. So our society has kind of made a big deal out of new beginnings. You know, when we reach a major milestone in our lives, we graduate from school, we start a new job, we get married, things like that. We think, oh, this is a new beginning. This is something new and something different and something wonderful is beginning, and it's beginning right here and it's beginning right now. So we tend to do that when there's some kind of a major shift in our lives. Sometimes people will go through an ordeal. You know, they will go through some type of a very frightful experience, or they will kick a habit that they've had for a long time, and they see that as the new beginning. And there's a place for new beginnings. We're told in Scripture is a time to take off the old Adam and put on the new. The old, and Adam was, means clay man, man of the earth, person of the earth, the mortal, the physical body that we have. But we also want to consider that every second, every minute is a new beginning. Because the divine law, the power of the law of mind, that which responds to us according to our belief, is always responding to us according to our belief. Always. It doesn't wait until we have this big aha moment and say, now is the time in my life that I want to start something new. I want a new job. I want a new spouse. I want a new home. I want a new car. I want these kind of things. And then suddenly the law wakes up and says, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll go to work on your behalf." It doesn't work that way. Think of it as gravity. Think of it as gravity. You know, even when you're asleep, even if you're under anesthesia in the hospital, even if you're completely unconscious, gravity works. Gravity is working. The law of mind is constantly working, constantly. And because you and I, as spiritual beings, you and I, the primary characteristic of what we are is thinkers, and we are the only thinkers in our universe. Because we are always thinking, the law is always responding. So every minute is a new beginning. Every minute is a new beginning. And we must become aware of that, and we must become comfortable with that. Now, part of the issue that we have to deal with there is that the law of correspondence, law of mind, it works whether we are consciously aware of what we are believing or whether it is functioning below our level of consciousness. So kind of subliminally, it's there, but we're not aware that it's there. We're constantly rehashing these old beliefs, whether we are aware of it or not. We are constantly believing something. We're constantly thinking something. And that power that responds to us according to our belief is always beginning anew through us and as us. It created us as a unique starting place, a unique place for it to have a new and different experience, excuse me, as us and through us. So this creative process is not something that we can turn on and off. It is there. It is like gravity. It is constantly functioning. What we can do is we can use our power of intellect and reason to become aware, to become aware of the fact that there's something in the universe that is responding to us according to our belief, right? And once we become satisfied with that, then it seems to make sense that we use it wisely, like the old Coke commercial, remember? Choose wisely. Excuse me while I take another little drink. So the first point I'd like to make is that you and I are individualized points, individualized expressions of that beautiful life that has created us out of itself. But it created us to create through us. It created us to create as us. It created us to become conscious co-creators with it. And conscious is the operative word there. We have been unconscious co-creators for most of our lives. Stuff happens, it just seems to happen. So as I say, the first stage we go through is we kind of think we're victims. Stuff happens and we can't control it and it's just going to happen, and we have to learn to either cope with it the best we can or manipulate it the best we can. And that seems to be what most of life, most of our culture is about. Turn on the news, that's what it's all about. Everybody's trying to figure out who's going to manipulate who. Look at politics, look at what's going on in the news and politics. Everybody's trying to outdo one another. All the politicians are trying to figure out how whatever situation comes up, how can they use it for their own advantage, It's all about power and control. It's all about manipulation. And that's just a phase that we go through. We have to understand that is just a phase that human beings go through as we are maturing, as our consciousness is maturing. If we jump over to something that we get from the Buddhist tradition, we find something along the lines of, we don't know how the game started. We just awaken to realize that we are in it. And we're trying to figure out the rules by which it works. That's what we're trying to do. So in that tradition and in Buddhism, it says, pain and suffering exist. Everybody goes through pain. Everybody goes through suffering. But the reason it exists is it exists because of our erroneous thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. And once we become aware of that, this is the first and second noble truth. And then the third noble truth is stop doing those things that are bringing pain to yourself. And then the fourth is to eliminate those, to eliminate the cause of those. Why do we do the things we do? Because of what we believe. So ultimately it comes down to changing our beliefs, to opening ourselves up. So we find ourselves then in this kind of, I won't say it's a predicament, but we find ourselves in this unique situation where we recognize that new beginnings are taking place every second of every day. And we, whether we are consciously aware of it or not, we are co-creating what is happening in our lives. Now, it's easier to blame somebody else, external things, parents and genes and school teachers and clergy and all that stuff. We can blame everybody else. But it's done unto us according to our belief, and we are the only thinkers in our universe. We are the only one who can change. who can change what's going on in our lives. You see, it may be true that other people mistreated us and abused us and did all kinds of things to us as we were growing up along the way. And I'm not saying that that didn't happen to anyone or that we should just ignore it. What I'm saying is we, you and I, no matter what has happened to us in the past, we are the only ones who can change it. So rather than dwelling on the past and why wasn't the past better, why wasn't the past fair, why wasn't the past equitable, why wasn't I born into a different situation, we find ourselves, as the Buddhists say, in the game, understanding the rules of the game. And the rules of the game say that we can have a conscious new beginning anytime we choose. And what I'm trying to get to today is that as we must become the conscious co-creators, the conscious choosers in our lives, because no one else can do it for us. You know, we live in a world where we love fairy tales. You know, and of course now with the movies that are drawing the biggest money at the box offices are the hero movies. You know, the action hero movies. Which I'll digress just a little bit here, but I actually heard a radio program one time, and they were talking about how when things are very confused and frightening, the comic books would generate new action heroes, and the new action heroes would kind of help the children to cope with whatever the frightening situation was. Captain America, Wonder Woman, these characters kind of emerged during the Second World War, which must have been an extremely frightening time for a child to grow up. But we're grown up now, you see. We're grown up now. And we have to get out of this living in a fairy tale fantasy that somebody's going to come along and wave the magic wand for us and suddenly our lives are going to get better. If it's going to be, it's up to me. I am the only thinker in my universe. There's a power in the universe that responds to me according to my belief. I have the ability to change my belief. Therefore, I have the responsibility to take charge of what's beginning in my life right here and right now. Now, if I don't consciously try to change, if I don't consciously try to work with my thoughts and my beliefs, I keep getting the same old stuff over and over and over again. I'm in Groundhog Day. I'm stuck in a rut. So today we're going to talk about new beginnings. And the first point that I think we have to really get comfortable with is that not only are new beginnings possible, but they are in fact occurring all the time. They look very much like old beginnings because we haven't done anything to change our consciousness. Einstein said the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And why do we do the things we do? We do the things we do because of what we believe. We believe these things to be appropriate. You know. As I started to become exposed to these ideas and started to think about them, it became very interesting for me to observe human behavior, no matter where I was. And I did a lot of flying, so a lot of my observation was in the airport lounge, sitting there at the gate, waiting for the plane to come and watching the people go up and down the hall and sit and wait for the plane. And it was always interesting to me, and reading the news as well, it was always interesting to look at a situation and say, now what would somebody have to believe to be true in order for that to make sense to them? Now there was an assertion there, an assumption there that people were behaving in a manner that made sense to them, which I believe at some level that's true, even if it's below a level of conscious awareness. And the idea then is that people are constantly doing or acting out of their underlying beliefs, So it's easy to sit there at the gate at the airport in the passenger lounge and look out look out at everybody else, but what about ourselves? You see, what about when we go and look in the mirror and we and it is, for me, this becomes funny because it becomes a, what in the world was I thinking? What in the world was I thinking when, how did that make sense to me at all? Why did I do some of the things that I did? So we'll never know. We'll probably never know, looking backwards, we'll probably never know. But what we can do is we can go forward. So there's a power in the universe that responds to us according to our belief. That belief is a combination of what we are consciously aware of and what we are below a level of conscious awareness, subliminally aware of. And you and I have the ability to change our beliefs. We have to, first, there's a power that responds to us according to our belief. We have to kind of examine that and say, yeah, do I really believe that? If so, how? How would I know? And assuming that we come to an understanding, yes, there's something going on here, then we have to say, well, how do I change my beliefs? And that question of how do I change my beliefs is a question of the new beginnings. The new beginnings. See, one of the kind of fascinating things about observing human beings is I have come to a realization that almost everyone wants something different. They want something new. But they don't want to change. They don't want to change. They want everything around them to change. They want everyone around them to change. As you know, I did that for years in the business that I was in. My job was changed. My title was Director of Organizational Change. And I would go around and I would interview different departments and ask them, what did they think needed a change in the organization in order for us to move in the new directions of our goals. And invariably they knew what needed to change, but invariably it had nothing to do with them. See, it was that department down the hall, they need to do things differently. They need to do this, they need to do that. And then I would look at them and I would say, well, when I was with that department down the hall and asked them what needed to change, they said it was you. Oh no, we're okay, we're okay. So we're like that. We as human beings are like that. We want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want everything to be different and better and new, but we don't want to give up any of the old stuff. So the first thing I would like to think of when it comes to this idea of transitions, and I'm drawing from William Bridges, wrote an excellent book on transitions. It's a very good book, just kind of like a self-help psychology book. But it has a lot of good wisdom in it. He says that, we all want new beginnings, and we have grown up in a society that tells us, everything has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. He says we've got to change our way of thinking because in truth there are endings. There are endings. Then there's a period of chaos, which is the middle. Nothing's familiar. The old is gone, the new is not yet here. Everything is confusing, everything is in turmoil, everything is crazy. What are we going to do? And then out of that chaos comes a new beginning. And for me, when I read that, I went back to the book of Genesis. And the book of Genesis in the beginning, was chaos. Nothing was as it is now. Everything was just, energy. And spirit moved upon the face of the water. So waters typically in the Bible, the waters typically refer to consciousness. Mary, the mother of God, Mary, the mother of Jesus, was the mistress of the sea. That's what Mary means. So in the beginning was the confusion, was the chaos, and everything was different. There was nothing like it is now. But Spirit moved upon the face of the waters and said, "Let there be." This was the new beginning emerging from the chaos. It started with an idea. It started with an idea. It started with a decision to have something new come out of the chaos. But that decision to start something new occurred after whatever was before had come to an end. There was an article that caught my attention in the headlines this week, and it said Stephen Hawkins thinks he knows what happened before the Big Bang. Now, I always love, I love reading about science, and I love reading about quantum physics and all those things, and I don't understand a word of it, so which is maybe why I love reading about it. Huh? The world is more mysterious than we know. And this kind of question is, if there was in fact this thing called the Big Bang, which, there are different theories, because not everything adds up to saying that our best minds really understand the way things are or were, but they have working theories and they explore those. And you got to start somewhere. And you got this theory then that there was this time where everything that is was compressed into an extremely tiny place, like, I don't know, size of the head of a pin or something like that, all of the matter in the universe, and just something happened, something unknown kicked the can, and it just started expanding, right? The Big Bang, and then out of that came all of the energy and all of the matter, which eventually formed the universe and the galaxies and these things. So the perennial question then becomes, well, what kicked the can? What got it moving? What was there before the Big Bang? And we don't know. And in fact, we don't have any way of knowing, because as this article went on, excuse me, to explain what Hawkins in fact said, at least as far as the article is concerned, is that, well, we don't know because the laws of physics as we understand them did not exist. There was nothing to weigh and to measure. It just didn't exist. Time didn't exist. Space didn't exist. So we don't know. Essentially, he said what happened before the Big Bang is we don't know what happened before the Big Bang. At least that's Jim's interpretation of this. But there was, if you stay with me, then there was something before the Big Bang, and it ended. Whatever it was, it ended, and the Big Bang began. In the beginning was the void, and was the chaos, and was the darkness, you see. And Spirit said, let there be, and there was. So we want new beginnings in our lives. We all want new things to happen, and we have to recognize two important points about that. One is that requires us to change. That requires you and I to change. We have to become the kind of people who do those things. We have to become the kind of people who have those experiences. We have to become the kind of people for whom that makes sense, you see, because our underlying beliefs have changed. I'm trying to think of the author's name, wrote The Path of Least Resistance. And he said, a river follows the course because that's where the channel is. And even if the river overflows its banks, eventually it goes back inside its channel. Now, if you want the river to take a different route, you have to change the underlying structure of the riverbed. Because if you don't, the river keeps going back into the old channel. Now, you and I want to change. And we have to change that underlying structure. We have to change the underlying beliefs that go with the old ways of being, the old ways of making sense. So the first thing we have to understand is we have to change. We have to be the one that changes. And the second thing we have to understand is that we have to let go of something. There has to be an ending. There has to be an ending to make room for a new beginning. So sometimes people would come and they would say, well, I want to sell my house. And I'd say, okay, is your old house ready to sell? What do you mean? Well, is it ready to sell? Is it painted? Have you cleaned out your closets? Have you removed all the clutter and taken it to the storage place? Trimmed the hedges? Fertilized the lawn? Are you ready to let it go? Well, no, I'm still living in the old house. and I have to live in it until I sell it. Well, you're still holding on to the old house. You haven't let it go. This is why if you watch the TV shows about selling property, they get the people out, they spiff up the place, and then they bring in staging furniture. Nobody's living there, but it looks great, and they have to do that. There has to be that ending, so there could be this new beginning. So what is it that we're holding on to? What is it, think about a change that you want to bring into your life. And you say, well, what am I holding on to that is keeping me from making room for that change? Now this implies that you have already made a decision, that you have a decision that you want to have a different experience in your life. And now you can use your intellect, and you can go back in and you can say, well, for example, if I want a new house, I got to let go of the old. If I want a new job, I got to let go of the old. If I want new habits, I want to get up and I want to go to the gym every morning at 5. I got to let go of the old habits, which is hitting the snooze alarm, those kind of things. There has to be a letting go, and that letting go has to be a letting go in consciousness. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as the kind of person who engaged in that old behavior. I know I've mentioned this before, but it kind of made a profound impact on me because I really loved Jefferson Airplane's music. But one time I was channel hopping, and there was an interview with Grace Slick, who had been the lead singer of Jefferson Airplane. And the person interviewing her was talking about her getting sober. She had an alcohol addiction. And he talked to her about getting sober, and he said to her, did you ever backslide? Did you ever quit drinking and then start drinking again? And she said, I did. She said, I did until I figured out why. She said, I knew what I was like when I was drunk. I didn't know what I was like when I was sober. And it frightened me. So she went back to her old behavior. She still thought of herself as that kind of person who drank and got drunk. And she had to eventually change that self-image. She had to change that picture she had of herself. She had to let go of the old and adopt a new, and then become comfortable with herself and loving herself as someone who just didn't do that anymore. Somebody who is sober. So we have these mental images. This is a little bit about how we become the way we are, how we stay the way we are, and how we change the way we are. And remember what I just said about Grace Slick, and it was frightening. It was frightening to be in that middle zone. She was trying to bring an end to her old life as an alcoholic. She had not completely made the transition to her new life of sobriety. And she was stuck in the middle, and it was frightening. It was unfamiliar. It is very important point to get across. When we, as human beings, are frightened, we tend to go back to that which we know. We tend to go back to something familiar. It's like we're going down a river, and we're standing in two different canoes. We got one foot in one canoe and the other foot in a different canoe. And we're heading downstream. And everything is going great until we come to a rock in the middle of the stream. And when we get to that rock in the middle of the stream, we have to make a decision. We have to decide to go with one canoe or the other. And almost all the time, people will go back to the one that is familiar. The one that is familiar. This is why manipulators will try to frighten us. They'll try to frighten us and get us to go back to something the way it was, the good old days. Let's go back to the good old days. Good old days are gone. Good old days don't exist anymore. But it doesn't matter. They'll stir up our fear and try to get us to want to go back to the good old days. And that's that's how they gain power over us. That's how we give our power away to them. Let me put it to you that way. So when we come into the world, how we become the way we are, when we come into the world, our intellect starts to label things, starts to analyze things. This is a dog, that's a cat, this is a table, that's a chair. And we start to believe that if we know a label for something, if we have a label on it, we understand it. And in many cases we don't understand it, we just understand the label. We just recognize the name of the label. And you see this also when there are debates in the public realm and things like that. Somebody will say something, somebody else will just label that and say, oh, well, that's nothing other than Marxism or Leninism or something, whatever they want to label it, however they want to put it down. Socialism. You hear that a lot today. We can't do that because it's socialism. Nobody asks, is it really, or why not? You know, even if it is, why can't we do it? Does it make sense, kind of things. So we tend to put labels on things and then quickly put them in that box, and then we think we understand them, and we never go back and revisit those labels. We never go back and challenge ourselves to see if we can come to a better understanding of what that means. So we are kind of like map makers, lean, mean map-making machines. We look at the landscape around us, and we try to identify where things fit. We put them into little cubby holes, pigeonholes, and we label them. And this goes over here, and that goes over there, and you know. And we create this this fantasy world. We create this world that is nothing more than a collection of our ideas, about the way things are and the way things they ought to be, and the way the people in our little our little map, you know, the way they are and the way they ought to be. The good people are over here and the bad people are over there, and these people do this and those people do that, and all of this is a creation of our intellect. And we do the same thing with ourselves. We start to form opinions about who we are and the way things are supposed to work in our lives. That's what I call the ego. It's a collection of ideas about who we are and the way things ought to work. And again, we have to remember that it's nothing more than a collection of ideas. It'd be interesting if you could sit in a room with maybe, 10 or 20 people who know you, and get them each to anonymously write down what they think of you. And you do the same, and then you compare the 20 written statements. Everybody knows somebody different. Everybody knows you in a different way. Everybody has different opinions of you. And all of these opinions, the only place that they formulated was in their consciousness. So in consciousness, we have this idea about the way things are and the way things ought to be, and these are our values and all of that. And then if we want to change, you see, that's the underlying structure that gets in the way. We want to do something new, but the underlying structure is in the way. Think of a time when you wanted to undergo some sort of a change that came into conflict with something that your friends, your neighbors, and your family might have believed to be true. Did you have a late in life religious conversion? Did you change from one political party to another political party? Did you marry someone of a different culture or a different religion? If your entire family was a military family, were you a pacifist? Did you become a pacifist? These kind of things that have deep-rooted values, and you understand how difficult it is, what I'm talking about. So what we have to let go of, ultimately, the ending that we have to come to, is we have to be willing to let those old ideas go. We have to be willing to let them go. Now, it's very tough for us as human beings to do that, because many times we can't surface those beliefs. And this was one of the things that again I would have to do in organizations. Was they would tell me what they wanted to do, and then I had to somehow figure out what was it that they believed to be true that needed to change. in order for them to do what they wanted to do. Now, this requires a great degree of self-awareness, and most organizations just simply did not have that. They just lacked the ability to do it. But you and I can develop that self-awareness. This is why developing our self-awareness, practicing our meditation, this is why observing our own behavior and observing our own thoughts as they go past the screen of our consciousness is so important. So important. We have to at least be willing to let go. We may not be able to know what it is that we need to let go of, but we have to be willing to let go of that. And we have to start the process then that sort of shakes that up, shakes up these old ideas, shakes up these old beliefs, and that gets uncomfortable. Okay, that gets uncomfortable for us. So it's not unusual when someone comes in for treatment and we do treatment with them for a different experience, it's not unusual for them to get uncomfortable in some way. It's not unusual for some old situation to start falling apart in some way. I've had people come in and say, oh, you know, I really want a new job. I'm tired of this old job and I don't like the way that they're treating me and all this kind of stuff, you know. And we would do treatment for a new job, and then a couple weeks later they would come in and they would say, oh my God, they laid me off. I've been fired. Good. We've got movement. But it's terrifying. It's frightening. I don't know, where am I going to work? Well, you're going to work in your new job. You know, go focus on your new job. People would come in and say, well, you know, I hate my landlord. I hate where I live. I hate everything about it. And then they would get evicted, you know. Good. Good. You see, the old has to make way. The old has to make way. But it gets frightening. It gets frightening if we don't understand what's going on. Now, if you've ever read the little booklet that Lori and I wrote on your metaphysical toolbox, we have a section in there on affirmations. And if you haven't read it and you would like a copy, shoot me an email or a phone call. Give me your email address, and I'll email you a PDF file of it. But affirmations is a tool in your spiritual toolbox. And an affirmation is a statement of something that you know is true, but you don't quite believe is true. That's the best way that I can put it. And what happens is when you start using the affirmation, it starts kind of hammering away. It's like that hammer and chisel I was talking about at the beginning of the TV shows back in the 60s, remember? I think it was Jack Webb Productions, and they would take the big hammer and chisel and they would carve something. So we start our affirmation, and the example that I used was from my own life, and it was on prosperity, and it was something like, I'm a prosperous child of an opulent universe, something like that. It came from Louise Hay. And what you do is you take a blank piece of paper and you write your affirmation across the top. You go someplace where you can do this in quiet. You read your affirmation out loud and you write down the very first thing that comes up. You don't judge it, you don't analyze it, you just write it down. You read the affirmation again, you write it down. You read the affirmation again, you write down whatever comes to you. And you keep doing that until you run out of gas, until nothing is coming. In fact, what I do is sometimes I'll read the affirmation and then I'll write down, there's nothing coming. And I read the affirmation, there's nothing coming. Read the affirmation, there's nothing coming. And if it goes on for like a half a page and nothing new comes, then I'll know I'm done. And you go down and you start to look at the responses that came up. And typically somewhere in there, there's something that doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't fit at all. And that's kind of showing you where there's an old idea that needs to get out of the way. So we have to be willing to find a way to go in there and shake up the old beliefs. And the spiritual tools in our toolbox are for that purpose. So treatment is the primary one that we use, because when we do our treatment, we are setting into motion that law of mind to produce whatever change or changes as needs must be in our consciousness for the new experience. That means something has to give. Something has to change. And we have to be willing to let that go. And sometimes we include that in our treatment work. We're saying, I'm willing to release and let go of everything and anything in consciousness that is not in line with this with this thing that I'm claiming right now. Affirmations are another good way of shaking those up. So we have to decide. First, I think you have to realize that you have the responsibility of deciding, not just the ability to decide, but you have the responsibility to decide, because nobody else is going to decide for you. Nobody else can decide for you. Nobody else can change your consciousness but yourself. So what do you wish to experience now? What is it that you wish to experience right now? And I'm not talking about doing this only when your job isn't satisfactory, only when your neighborhood isn't satisfactory, only when your income isn't satisfactory, only when you have a health issue. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about each and every day. Each and every day is a new beginning. Each and every minute of each and every day is a new beginning. What do you want to have happen now? That's a question you should be asking yourself all day long. What do I want to have happen now? Are you willing to let go? Are you willing to initiate that ending? Are you willing to let go of everything that needs to be let go of, even if you don't yet know what they are? But are you willing to let go of them? And then are you willing to initiate the processes that are going to shake loose those old ideas, treatment and affirmations, that are going to shake loose those old ideas to get them out of the way? Then when you are in the middle, when you are in the period of chaos, when the old has fallen away or begun to fall away, let it go, right? Let it go. Don't keep trying to hold on to it. Let it go. I remember when I was a kid, excuse me, when I was a kid one time, a hurricane came and destroyed everything on the ground floor of our home. We lived right on the water. And my grandparents came down from Brooklyn to help my mother clean. My dad was at work, and they came to help my mother clean. And all the windows of the house were open, trying to get air in the house to get things to dry out. And my grandmother had a broom, and she was pushing it through the water, and all of my stuff that I had on the first floor of the house that had gotten saturated in the storm was there, and she kind of pushed it over to the window, and she was throwing these things out the window. And I guess the idea was later we would go out with a shovel and shovel them up and put them in the garbage can for the sanitation workers to come get, you know. And I was outside, and here comes my stuff in a soaking wet, coming out the window, and I'm going, it's my stuff, and I'm picking it back up and throwing it back in the window, and she's throwing it back out. So finally she stuck her head out the window. She said, what's going on? You know, I said, well, you can't throw that out. And she says, it's ruined, it's gone, it's soaking wet. You know, you can't have that anymore. You know, you can get a new one later on, but you can't have that one anymore. And I had to let go. So we have to be willing to let go. So we decide on our new beginning. We initiate our spiritual practices of treatment and affirmation. We sit in meditation. We observe what's going through our consciousness that might give us some insight. We start to see the end as an already accomplished fact. We start to use our visualization. And if it gets frightening, we just trust. If it gets frightening, we have to sit back and say, this is good, this is good. The old had to come to an ending. That means that the new is just around the corner, and I can be comfortable in the chaos. I can be comfortable in the change. I can let the old fall apart. I don't have to yet see the new in its entirety. See, we want to do that. We want to hold on to the old until the new has arrived in all its glory. And then we want to start letting go of the old. It doesn't usually happen that way. Let go of the old. Let the ending take place. If it takes place smoothly, that's wonderful. If it takes place in chaos, that's wonderful too. See, we have become the way we are by forming all of these opinions about the way things ought to be, and really all we're doing is letting go of them. But we're very attached to them. They're our ideas. You know, our opinion of who and what we are is ours. You know, we need to protect that. We need to hold on to that. That's the way society is. Now we need to let it go. We need to let it go. We need to become comfortable in the chaos. We need to become comfortable. See, what Bridges tells us is that in that time of chaos, in that time of confusion, in that time of I can't recognize anything because all the old is gone and the new is not here yet, what happens is we start to really latch on to that new beginning. We really start to latch on to that idea of what the new beginning is. And we start to see how that new beginning is taking place, how all of the things that are in chaos in our lives are starting to put themselves back together. They are coming together in a manner that gives rise to the new beginning that we wanted. We may not be able to recognize it just yet, but they're coming together in a manner that gives rise to that new beginning. I had an uncle who used to love to ask me kind of riddles, you know, and these weren't the unsolvable kinds. These were kind of like practical things, like if you had a glass of water and you put 2 ice cubes in it, or you shaved the 2 ice cubes and put the shaved ice in it, you know, which glass of water would chill quicker? Those kind of things. And it's the one with the shaved ice because there's more surface. There's more surface for the heat exchange to take place, so it occurs more quickly. And the question he asks is, which is going to freeze faster? You have two trays of ice cubes. For those of you who are old enough to remember when we actually had these things called ice cube trays, you have 2 ice cube trays, and you put cold tap water in one, and you put hot tap water in the other, and you put them both in the freezer. And which one is going to freeze quicker? And the answer was the one with the hot water. Now, I have never tried this, so I don't know for sure, but the answer was the one with the hot water. And the reason for that was that in the cold water, the molecules are in a relatively stable state. Excuse me. And in order to get them to move closer together, in order to crystallize, they had to sit in the cold air long enough to overcome that inertia. But the molecules in the warm water were churning. They're moving. That's why the water is warm. The molecules are running around bumping into one another in there. They're already in motion, and they want, not that they want like you and I want, but their tendency is to seek a stable state. So now you put that state of flux, you put that water in a state of flux into the freezer. And it's already trying to achieve some stability, and now you have the action of the cold air on it, which is trying to move it into a state of stability in a crystal form. And the theory then is that the warm water will make ice more quickly. I want you to keep that picture in your mind, because when you are in that state of chaos, when everything is kind of confused, when the old is gone and the new is not yet here, and everything seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. See, that's good. That's good. You see, everything's in motion. My molecules are moving. Everything in my life is moving. And as long as I stay focused on that new beginning, the power that responds to me according to my belief will assemble out of this chaos, will assemble that which is perfect and appropriate for this new experience in my life. Spirit moves upon the face of the waters, and out of the chaos, let there be, let there be. See, that same power responds to us. So what I would hope that we take from today, if we kind of take this away, is a sense of optimism and a sense of kind of responsibility. We are the only thinkers in our universe. We are the only ones who can ultimately change our minds. There's a power that responds to us according to our belief, and it's doing so all of the time. all of the time, whether we are consciously choosing what to believe or not. So the only thing that makes sense to me is to consciously choose, because we can't stop this power from interacting with our thoughts any more than we can stop gravity from interacting with our body. So since it is constantly creating new beginnings in our lives through our thoughts and beliefs, it only makes sense for you and I to consciously take charge of what we're thinking. Change your thinking. Change your life. You have the tools in your spiritual toolbox to do that. You have meditation. You have affirmation. You have treatment. You have visualization. You have the tools that you need to do it. You have the knowledge to do it. And you have the support group through our mastermind call every couple of weeks to do it. You know what needs to be done. You know the tools to use to do it. And the rest is up to you. The rest is up to you. The only question is, are you doing it? How often are you doing it? However often you're doing it, can you do it more often? Joel Goldsmith, who's one of my favorite teachers, Joel Goldsmith says that at one time somebody asked him why he didn't start a university, an infinite way university. That's what he called his teaching. Why didn't he start an infinite way university? And he laughed and he said, where are we going to get people who are going to give 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 7 years? Where are you going to get those people? He says they have to come on their own. They have to step into this on their own. He said the amount of spiritual progress that an individual makes is directly proportional to the amount of time that they spend in spiritual practice. He says if a student comes and says they want to make great spiritual progress, he would simply ask them, well, how many hours a day do you spend in your spiritual practice? That's it. If they said 20 minutes, he said, well, that's what you're going to get. If they said 6 hours, he said, that's what you're going to get. You're the only thinker in your life. At some point, you have to realize that it's your responsibility, not just your ability, but your responsibility to take conscious control of your experience. In looking at your life the way it is now, you will get an idea of what you've been believing. But that's not as important as deciding how you want your life to be now, in the future. Your willingness to let go of the past, and your courage to sit in that chaotic middle zone and be comfortable. It's all good. It's all good. There's a pony in here somewhere. It's all good. It's all unfolding perfectly well for me. You are a unique, individualized starting point for Spirit to create something anew. Spirit's doing that whether you are aware of it or not. Now is the time to take conscious control. Make yourself aware of what you're thinking through meditation. Direct your subconscious mind what to believe through treatments, affirmations, and visualizations. Step into that new experience that you were created to create. And in doing so, life itself has a new, unique, and greater experience of itself here as you. And so it is. Alrighty, let's see here if I can remember my announcements without Lori to write them down for me. That's okay. So tomorrow night, Monday night, no mastermind tomorrow night. That was last week, but it will be in a week from tomorrow. And if you've listened to today's talk and you decide, well, I really want to get some help, some moral support in doing my treatment work, please join us. Please call into the conference bridge. It's in the number's in the email that I send out for those of you who are watching on YouTube. But join us. If you can't join that, then find a way to do your spiritual practice. This Wednesday night, the Skype group is meeting again, and we are reading chapters 8 and 9 in Ernest Holmes' book, New Design for Living. We thank you for all your love and your support, for the gifts that you send in, and for keeping Lori and I in your spiritual practice. Keep treating for us that we continue to grow, we continue to have things to share, that we all continue to grow as spiritual community together. All right then, so let's come to a closing treatment. There's only one life, and that life is God, and that life is perfect. It is constantly creating. Meister Eckhart tells us that God is always begetting the only begotten. Each and every one of us. And through each and every one of us, according to our belief, it is creating anew. We accept then our responsibility. We realize that we can't turn it off. All we can do is direct it. We can't stop water from flowing downhill. We can change its direction. Today, we fully accept our ability and our responsibility to choose our thoughts. We release and we let go of every and any idea in our consciousness that may have been blocking us from doing so. We deliberately choose what kind of day we shall have today. And tomorrow we will do the same, but we will do that tomorrow. We choose the interactions we will have, kind and loving. We choose the food we will eat, healthy, flavorful. We choose the kind of day we will have, fulfilling and filled with growth. We are delighted to step into our new role as conscious co-creators, or perhaps a role that we are more aware of as conscious co-creators. We are excited about the possibilities of all of the new beginnings in our lives. We are grateful for the opportunity to be here together, and we release this treatment to that perfect law, knowing so certainly it is done, that we say together, and so it is. Thank you again for being with us. Everybody have a beautiful week. Please take some time today, tomorrow, take some time during the week to just think about these ideas. Think about how much time you're really putting into consciously co-creating. And I said consciously co-creating your experience. Because you're co-creating all the time, whether consciously or not. So why not choose wisely? Have a blessed week, everyone. Take care now.